Your unique story, our global audience. Global One Media.
Well, hello, and welcome to Global One Media's exclusive one-on-one experience with leaders of companies sharing their unique journey and mission with you. I'm your host, Ashley Berry, and thank you so much for tuning in. Today, we are very excited to be joined by David Williams, Executive Director of Thomson Resources. This is a company focused on uncovering the Earth's solutions in the discovery of high-quality gold, tin, zinc, and copper deposits. They're listed on the Australia Exchange as TMZ and the OTCQB as TMZRF. David, welcome. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to sit down with us today.
Good morning or good evening, Ashley. It's a pleasure to talk with you. Looking forward to the chat.
Oh, the pleasure's all ours. Thank you so much, David. Well, let's jump right in. So you recently decided to settle on a central processing pathway, which is aligned with your hub and spoke working together strategy. Maybe you could expand a little bit on your decision to have Thomson Resources Central Processing Facility near Tenterfield and the outcomes of your recent study.
Yeah, look, it's all about bringing together deposits, resources that are too small in their own right to take forward. And then you've got to look at, well, if you can get the economies of scale from a central processing facility, where you're best to have it. And what's evolved as we've done this work is that clearly the Mount Carrington deposit or the Mount Carrington project is going to be the largest resource. So through this study, we went through the exercise of looking at our individual deposits and did the what if of using Tenterfield, which is just down the road from Mount Carrington, and good resources, good facilities, good infrastructure. And hey, presto, we got some really good numbers out of that. And so that's our focus going forward.
Fascinating. You know, from your description, it's clear that the central processing facility will have a solid production capacity, which means your future expectations are certainly very bright. So if you could tell us a little bit about the specific resources you've defined so far on those projects and the potential for expansion.
Yeah, look, when we pulled it together, we pulled projects together that already actually had published resources, not necessarily to the current code, and resources that aggregated in excess of 100 million silver equivalent ounces. Now, we've gone through these and largely we've done our own mineral resource estimates. We've done 2 of the 8 deposits at Mount Carrington, and the 2 deposits at Mount Carrington plus Webbs and Conrad and the 3 at Texas give us an aggregate of the resources we've published of 87 million silver equivalent ounces, running at about 119 grams per tonne silver equivalent. Now, once you start adding in the other deposits at Mount Carrington and the pretty obvious exploration upside at both Mount Carrington, Webbs and Conrad, you're going to take that number to much larger than that and certainly well over our target of 100 million silver equivalent ounces. So there's plenty of upside. In the case of Mount Carrington, all we've got to do is to restate and work to the current code and bring in the polymetallic element of those resources. So a lot of the hard lifting, the drilling and so on has already been done. We just need to pull it all together with new estimates.
Well, along those terms, I understand that your Mount Carrington project has some copper deposits in addition to the gold and silver deposits. And I think for our audience, it would be helpful to understand how you plan to leverage the additional deposits and what might the potential be there.
Yeah, look, so the secret in the whole hub and spoke strategy right from the outset was, okay, we're focused on silver. Silver is the main target, but it's very rare, if at all, that silver comes on its own. And so we knew there were a number of other critical metals, so particularly copper and zinc and tin, and in a number of the cases also the other precious metal of gold, and gold's always good. So we've always approached it from looking at the total suite of metals and the processing, looking at how you can extract those other metals and get value for them. So when we went back and started really looking at Mount Carrington, first, we knew it sat within a 1 kilometre copper soil anomaly, so tick. Secondly, we went back and started adding in the copper and the zinc in there, and that was increasing the resources. And thirdly, we went back and looked at some of those previous targets for copper that the previous operators had ignored, and you really start seeing some pretty serious copper there. And the one we announced just a few weeks ago, All Nations, now that's got copper hits of 3 to 5%, and that's coming from not far below surface. So yeah, there's a lot of copper there that really just hasn't been factored in, and we know how important copper, along with silver, is becoming.
To be a fly on the wall to witness that. Amazing. So here's your opportunity to predict the future. How do you believe commodity markets will perform in the upcoming years? And do you believe that your exposure to these several minerals that we're talking about is an advantage in this case?
Look, I think there's a number of advantages with the hub and spoke. So firstly, we're not reliant on just one deposit coming in. So we've got the flexibility of if one of the deposits is not behaving as we had hoped or not coming up with the numbers we hope, it doesn't kill off the whole project. And we've demonstrated that with some of the Texas deposits already. So that's an important aspect. The second thing, as I said, where a lot of these projects fell over in the past is that operators just looked at the silver and they were hell-bent on getting the silver out. And then when the silver price went down, they didn't have a project anymore. And yet they were missing the fact that silver might have been down, but zinc or copper or even gold might have been up. And I think that's part of the secret to success here, is to making sure you get the value from those, making sure that you can mix and match a bit so that you can target the commodities whose prices are up, and really just making sure that you're not blinkering yourself just for one commodity, that you're looking at that bigger polymetallic picture. And again, Mount Carrington's a classic of that, because we actually think the key gold and silver dominant deposits are all going to coalesce into one large polymetallic deposit, which is going to have a lot of copper and zinc with it as well. And if you can get the value for that, and it's the same hole, it's the same rock, then you're actually improving those economics significantly.
Oh, absolutely. Like trying to find the perfect recipe really is what it is.
Yes.
So fascinating. So I've heard you mention, and this particularly I found very interesting, your focus remains on treating mining as a successful business, and that you envision Thomson Resources as a long-term, economically sustainable producer of silver in Australia. What might our audience take from that?
Well, I was a bit cheeky when I first coined the phrase, but I really thought it was it really summed up what our focus was, and I used the term MAB, a bit like SAS, a spoof on SAS, mining as a business. And so often you come across in the industry people that will pull something together and talk it up, and with a view that then they can get out at a higher price, or they can sell it off to someone that don't really have any intention of going forward. And I was actually talking to someone the other day and saying, it's frustrating. You're pulling together a project, you've got all the published resources, and the market goes a bit ho-hum. But you go and drill a hole, you might not have a commercial resource, and fantastic, we'll pile into this. So I think what's important is we set forward with a strategy with the vision of bringing it into production, recognizing the critical metal nature of silver and some of the other metals, and the opportunity that presented itself in Australia, the limited opportunity to invest in a silver-focused business. And we're staying the course. We're not going to flip across to, look, we've found some rare earths, or we're not going to flip across and, now we've got some lithium and so on. This is about bringing these projects together and bringing them through that development stage that we're on the pathway now into production. And this study that we came out with last month gives us the confidence that it all hangs together, even at the current metal prices, even with just some of the resources and not all of the resources. And that we're driven to go forward and start producing silver, but getting value for those other metals like copper and zinc and gold along the way.
Wonderful. Well, David, we want to congratulate you. You've recently issued your very first ESG report. Can you share some key highlights of that?
Yeah, look, it's a starting point, and what's interesting is I think that largely the nature of regulation in Australia, or mining regulation in Australia, is such that you have pretty high standards, particularly from that environmental side, but also from the health and safety side. And so, when you sit down and you look at it, well, you're going to be doing a lot of that. Those things, that you're meant to achieve with it, and so in that regard, it's sort of an easy task. But I think what's important in this, and I treat it the same way as with health and safety, is it's about a culture. And if you instill that culture at the beginning, if you instill that sort of focus at the beginning, then it becomes natural. It's not about, okay, here's a production facility. Oh, now let's think about how we can make it more environmentally friendly. You're going into it and you're designing it with that view of, well, look, we don't want to be burning diesel for power. We want to be able to bring in solar power or green power and whatever it is. So you know that from the start, and you know that from your design of how you're dealing with it, your impact on the footprint, your impact on the community, the sorts of employees you're employing, that you're going to achieve those objectives. So for me, it's about, yes, we've done our baseline. We tick a lot of the boxes. There's a number of the boxes still to be ticked because we're not at that stage yet. But what is key is we're starting with that culture of we're ESG focused.
And David, that is the recipe for success, in my opinion. David Williams from Thomson Resources in Australia, thank you so much for sharing your insights into your truly impressive mission. We certainly look forward to sharing updates with our audience in the near future.
Thank you, Ashley. Been a pleasure talking with you.